Welcome everybody to another episode of We Judge Everything podcast. We're talking still about the Scream franchise. We're up to the fourth chapter in the Scream franchise of movies. We are very excited to finally get closer to Scream 5 and then Scream 6, which I still haven't seen yet. Proof that I love you because my God. Yeah. So we made it past Scream 4. It is the first of the return, I guess you would say the new trilogy, since apparently someone spoiled that there's going to be a Scream 7. But yeah, so Scream 4 came out in 2011. It was, I believe, still directed by Wes Craven. It was the last movie that he directed in the franchise. But before we continue about Scream 4, I know this is about Scream 4, but I wanted to cover this because we forgot to talk about it in the Scream 3 video. There was just a real quick little detail that escaped us that I think was really cool because it was kind of like an Easter egg, but not really. And that was that Sydney's necklace was Derek's necklace from Scream 2.
Yes, she wears it the whole movie.
Yeah, it's like the Greek letters from his fraternity. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was pretty cool because even though we did shit on Derek pretty hard because he kind of was forgettable, and I know as a kid, I was like, wait a second. Who is this guy? Oh, he's dead. Whenever they brought him down, I thought that was, we talked about it, that I thought it was blood.
He's didn't add a whole lot to the movie.
Yeah, but I thought it was still cool because she did date him. And, you know, it kind of sucked that he died the way he did. And he couldn't defend himself. You know, he just got capped.
Yeah, and it kind of just makes you real, like, instills the fact that, you know, she was trying to move on and everything. And she really did love him and trust him. And so she still wears it, you know, for the rest of the movie and everything. That's really cool. I wish I would have had her wearing it in the fourth one, so it continued on. I don't know.
I guess
because like it, you know, it just proves like she didn't forget about him, and I don't know.
I think if anything, they should have showed. I mean, to be fair, the fourth one doesn't take place in Woodsboro, so that's probably what happened. She probably has it at home or something like that, and we just didn't. It was just off camera. Plus, in real world talk, it was 11 years later. So
fourth one does happen in Woodsboro though.
I meant, oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, I got confused. Maybe I meant to say it was the being 11 years later, and like she's all grown up. She probably lost it. I mean, we lose things. Like I don't have things from high school anymore.
I forget that there's a big time gap, which is like a big part of it.
But it was awesome that they actually incorporated it in the real world.
Yeah, it's like legit the same amount of time too.
Yeah, I thought it was cool because I'm sick of movies trying to pretend like reviving the franchise a decade later. They're just like, oh yeah, this was like next month. Like, come on, dude. Yeah. But like we said, it's the return to the franchise. As I said, I believe in the Scream 3 review. If not, I'm saying it now. I thought that the franchise was over. The ending of Scream 3 was very weird, very ambiguous. We got that stupid Kincaid like, oh, we just have to wait and see.
Come watch a movie with us.
And I was like, what the hell's going on? But yeah, so Scream 3 was kind of weird the way it ended. It kind of left this like, I don't know, like fairy tale ending of like, oh my God, Sydney's no longer afraid of her own shadow. She's not using her ADT system or whatever the crap. And I thought it was pretty cool that, you know, they went back and decided to go back with the Scream franchise and revive it. Not as a reboot, not as a remake, but they call it, I think, a scream quill or a squeakquill or something like that. And I forget the words, but they called it something in the movie, talking about how it wasn't a prequel or a sequel rather, and it wasn't a remake or reboot, which it wasn't because it was the same characters.
Yeah, it's just a continuation.
Yeah, but it was definitely using the same formula as, you know, Scream 1. I think some people probably, I don't know anybody, but if you're one of those people watching this and you said, oh, they played it safe, dude, whatever, man. Like it's another movie in a beloved franchise, and contrary to popular belief, I don't think it was bad.
I don't either. I think it gave a sense of like comfort and like familiarity, or however you say that word. But yeah, I mean, I've seen so much talk about the third and fourth ones being the worst ones, which obviously I haven't seen the fifth, and now that the sixth one's out, I haven't seen the sixth one. But I mean, so far, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's like as good and perfect as the original one, but I don't see all the negative hype around it. Like I really don't, honestly. Obviously, like we said, the ending of the third one was a little iffy, which does make it kind of maybe, I guess, the worst one by comparison, but I don't know, it's just not that bad to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of what people have problems with is the fact that everyone I know we're breaking the movie down now. I'm well aware of that shit. But I mean, a lot of people overanalyze movies and they expect every movie to be, and you probably have no idea what some of these movies I'm about to reference are, but like a Goodfellas or a Scarface or, even Titanic, but for whatever means. Like, people look at these movies like, oh, they're all supposed to knock it out of the park, grand slam. I don't think so.
No, it's just for the fans, really. Unless it's like one of those sequels or whatever that you can obviously tell is just like a cash grab or whatever. But with this series, it's more like for the fans that want more of it. It's not supposed to be like its own individual thing that's like supposed to be better than the first one or whatever. Like, so I think people analyze it the wrong way.
They tend to. And I mean, now the more that we get with social media and everybody having, a literal opinion in their pocket, an opinion machine, people are going to say what they think. And I mean, that's what this is about. That's what this podcast is about. So the cool thing is that I think still, by and large, a dedicated Scream fan isn't going to sit there and like shit on this like you would Halloween. I know, again, you probably don't know this yet because we haven't gotten to these movies, but those of you who are slasher fanatics, the Halloween movies took a giant nosedive. You have what's called the Cult of the Thorn or the Cult of Thorn trilogy, which was absolute dog shit. We'll save that for another episode, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And I think these Scream movies are still phenomenal. I think in order, they're probably good, but that's again for probably another video. But I just wanted to touch on the fact that the self-awareness was still very, very present. It was dialed to 11, some would say.
Yes, because pretty much the whole intro before the title card is them being self-aware and like
meta.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally like self-awareness within self-awareness. It's like,
yeah. And I didn't realize until because we, as you guys that have been following these videos know, we tend to watch these movies like once, twice, maybe even 3 times to try and make sure that we pick up on most of what we can detail wise and stuff like that. And I think it wasn't until the very last time, which quite honestly, unlike the original trilogy, I've seen Scream 4 the least. And then, shortly after that, Scream 5, now that I've seen Scream 4 times. Wow. 4. Yeah. Now that I've seen it that many times, Scream 5 is the one I've seen the least officially. So it's kind of making me really, really nitpick and get to the bottom of the details and stuff that some of us ignore, and especially when doing a video like this. So I didn't notice before, all that to say, that the opening, the cold opens, how we calling them or whatever, it's basically they actually talk about how the opening for Scream 7 or for Scream 5 is Scream 6 or something like that, and then the opening for Scream 6 is Scream 7. I may be saying that wrong, but they basically Stab 6 is actually Stab 7 or something like that. They actually talk about it in the movie, and I didn't realize. I thought it was just literally to just dupe us and that's it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. I mean, of course, looking at it 2 different ways, because you think it's going one way, and then after you actually listen to the people talk about it, because that's one of those comments that for some reason just went over my head, But I thought that was pretty interesting that they had 2 fake endings. You had one with, I don't remember their names, but they basically had some sort of, I guess, stardom in like the early 2000s, if not like 2005 or something like that. And then you had, of course, I think it's Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin, which Kristen Bell, obviously she's married to Dax Shepard. She's done, a lot of movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And then especially in that era during the like 40-year-old virgin time frame with Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And she was also in Fanboys and stuff like that. And then you have Anna Paquin, who was doing True Blood and also the X-Men movies as Rogue, but they were definitely like B-listers, like or a healthy C-lister, of Hollywood, and they were just getting this screen time on a franchise like Scream, which I thought was interesting. But do you have anything to say on that?
No, I mean, as far as like the intro goes, I definitely had a lot of mixed feelings about it, especially like when I first started watching it. I was like, okay, this kind of just seems like a repeat of Scream 1, and then of course they dupe us and show that it's just the intro or like a commercial or something for, the other Stab movies. But it was just like, it was really weird. Like, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm still pretty undecided, honestly. Because
the first time we watched it, I think memory serves, you were on your way to the couch and you were like walking from the kitchen, and I think I accidentally hit play too soon or something like that, and you were like, wait, what? And then you sat down right as the first like fake ending, which you knew that the movies basically start with someone getting killed in the beginning, either one or two people, and then you were like, wait, what? And then it goes right into Anna Paquin.
Which I think it's actually been 2 people each time. There's always 2 people that get killed each time.
Right. Yep. Counting in the original with the boyfriend and stuff. Yeah. But and then you get the Anna Paquin scene and the Kristen Bell scene, and you're like, wait, what? And then I was like, okay. And then you're like, is this it? And I was like, yeah, that.
Yeah. Once they got to the 3rd, kill, I was like, are we done? Like, is that finally, is this real life? Like, are these the people that watched the movie and are actually like.
Basically, when they got to the 2 blonde-ish girls that I had never seen before, I was like, oh, this must be it. And like, literally, that's how I took it when I first saw the movie, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so I just want to touch on the fact real quick. We're also going to try to cut these videos even further down, because I've gotten some feedback, people saying that we're kind of not necessarily being repetitive, but trailing off into the same realm of stuff we've already covered. So I guess that is repetitive, but definitely not intentional. So we're going to try and like keep it real streamlined if we can. I just want to start off with the fact that this was probably the most aggressive Ghostface we've ever had.
Yeah.
He was so visceral and aggressive and violent, and that to me was refreshing. I know a lot of people in your research, you said that they thought the movie was subpar because it was too bloody or it was too gruesome.
Yeah, like I guess people are trying to say that they sacrificed the quality of the movie for like gore or like scariness or whatever, but I think they just added more bloodiness and gore to it.
Well,
I don't really think that they sacrificed anything for it, honestly. I mean,
you got to take into account too, it's a different Ghostface in every movie.
Yeah, exactly. So like, they're gonna have different methods, different fucked up desires and shit like that. So like, people are thinking of it as like, oh, it's Ghostface, like he's one person, and that's just not how it is. They're people. Everybody is different, especially like murderers. Like, they're not gonna have the same exact thought process. They're gonna be similar probably, but
Ghostface is a title. It's not like you're saying, it's not a character. It's not like Michael Myers or Jason or Chucky, where it's the same soul, the same person. It's literally just a letterhead. Like he's a character that you're using to disguise who you really are. And like you said, they all have different motives and different, reasons for doing it and stuff like that. And I think in this one, obviously we'll touch on it, but and for those of you who this is your first podcast episode, we do heavily break these movies down. So spoiler alert obviously goes in effect. But this movie is very different because it has that, I don't want to say stigma, but it has that like, oh my God, we can't be exactly like the original. And even though it was very, very similar, they even talk about it, within the movie. They're like, well, it's not going to be the original. It's going to be outdoing the original. And I really want to make a Star Wars reference based off of like episode 7 and episode 4, but you're not there yet. So I don't want to talk about why I compare those two. Those of you who know what I'm talking about, leave a comment down below. She won't read them. But, but yeah, so I definitely wanted to touch on the fact that he was super aggressive. His phone calls were very short and sweet. He was very much like, this is the last person you're gonna see alive, and then the person says something else and he's just like, you want to die. Like, it's so like just almost like somebody hit fast forward on him. And at first I didn't know how I felt about that. Then after a while I was like, you know what, it's not too bad, because it's a different person. They're doing a different tactic, laying down different groundwork, and we have no idea how these kills are going to play out. Are they going to match the high octane, really, really heavy speed performance of Ghostface on the phone, which they did, or are they going to be laid back, chill, serving as a contrast to how he spoke? And then obviously we find out he hits the ground running. So yeah, it's pretty, I say he because Ghostface has always been a guy, like for some reason, and
the voice is always a guy.
Yeah,
it's always
call.
A guy's voice.
Yeah, exactly. Good call. But yeah, so that's also one of the big pluses for me. It also introduced heavy social media. This movie was almost like it was made 2 years ago, and it was almost it was made almost or over a decade ago. And it's very, very, very prevalent. Of course, back then it was Twitter. They even make fun of it. They're saying that there was like a Facebook killer, it's horse shit. And then she's like, it'd be Twitter by today's standards, and today obviously it'd be like Snapchat or like YouTube or Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely noticed how they showed a lot how more modern this movie is compared to the other ones. They really like did a good job at like going with the time gap and the progression of everything that happened over the 11 years and everything, and without being too crazy and in your face with it. It was just like natural. And I like that a lot about it.
Yeah, it definitely, like you said, well put. It definitely felt natural. It felt very, very cohesive. Everything kind of just happened, but it wasn't at an alarming, like disorienting pace.
Like I almost expected them to use the whole social media thing and the progression of technology and social media as like a heavy part of the plot, which I don't think I would have liked that much.
Same.
But instead, they just showed that was just what was happening at that time, because I mean, that's what happens when time goes by. Shit progresses, and they did a good job of showing that without being too crazy with it.
It also showed Woodsboro. It still kept that charm of being a small town.
Yeah.
They showed a lot of camera angle, or like a lot of shots, establishing shots of the hospital and showing like the neon sign, which reminded me of Halloween 2 a lot. Showing, you know, like the old Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, Woodsboro, I think it was called Memorial Hospital. And it was very, very, very awesome to just see that it was still Woodsboro. It was a very different take. You didn't really see the high school as much as you saw it in the other movies, but it still felt like Woodsboro. They showed that very opening scene with that song from The Sounds that we keep listening to, and you see like the ghost face hanging from the street lights and stuff like that, and people taking it down, and it was more of the music, as I always talk about, the music of these movies. And this one definitely very much was a 2008 to 2012 or something like that kind of soundtrack. It felt really, really fresh, you know, not 12 because it came out in 11, but you know what I mean. And I thought it was really refreshing. I was very excited to see where it was going to go, because it had a lot, you know, to hold up to, because the first three were regarded as some of the best slasher movies of all time. So I was very, very eager. I'm looking at my notes here that, you know, to see how the social media would play out. It wasn't so much in your face as it could have been. It definitely was a big part of how the story was told and what the Ghostface motive, quote unquote, may or may not have been, you know, because all the characters were like, oh, he's trying to outdo the original and like film the kills in real time, and then, you know, try to immortalize his kills like he would be immortalized himself. And I liked the way that they did that, and I thought it showed Ghostface being really freaking ballsy, because how are you going to do these killings, some of them in plain sight, and in an age with social media where people could just take a picture and it's uploaded in every major news article?
Yeah, well, that's what they wanted.
Yeah. And so that's the only way that it would work, if that was part of your plan. It's all part of the plan. But anyway, so it's very, very, very awesome how they did that. You know, he was able to terrorize them and do whatever he wanted despite the social media, which is pretty cool. The first kills, to me, it was like an homage to Tatum's kill.
Yes.
I thought that was awesome. I know you'd like that.
I did. I noticed that pretty much immediately. You know, she was in the garage, and then he closed the garage door on her. It's kind of like a reverse of what happened to Tatum, because, you know, she went up in the garage. This girl, the garage came down on her.
Yeah.
And obviously she didn't die from the garage. He still stabbed her, which, unlike Tatum, you know.
Right.
But it did seem like an homage to Tatum, and I definitely liked that a lot.
I did like the fact that, like you pointed out, I didn't realize that it was a reverse. You know, he crushed her like lower back with it. Now, I don't know if that's how garage doors work. If you guys know, let us know. Was it total bullshit?
I was wondering, like, would it be strong enough to do that? Like, to hurt her bad? Or maybe he was just trying to slow her down. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, she was already stabbed, so maybe that's something that, you know, it could have been psychological. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely.
Because imagine if, like, your upper half is being blocked out from your lower half. You have no idea what's going on back there, kind of deal. But so I thought it was really cool that he, like you said, he had an homage, but it was to us. Like, they wrote that into the script, and it had nothing to do with the in-world. As you guys know, this movie is very meta, and that was not part of it. They still found a way to keep it, quote unquote, fresh for us and not connected. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, that was really interesting to see. The music, as we talked about, was very, very upbeat and modern. So they were very much trying to be the new generation, not only of the kids, so the victims, so to speak, but it was very much a passing of the torch kind of a film. And I liked how that played into the main plot and everything else.
Yes, they definitely bring us back to the first one without copying the first one, and that's something I really like about the fourth one. Is it just gives it, especially since they're back in Woodsboro and everything, and they're back at the high school, and the characters aren't necessarily similar or just like the high schoolers in the first one, but it's just similar enough to give us like that familiar feeling while also doing new stuff at the same time. Because, you know, like, obviously Jill and, what's his name? The guy that is her ex.
Oh, I don't remember.
I have it written down here somewhere. But, Trevor. Jill and Trevor's relationship is kind of like, Sydney and Billy's, except for the fact that obviously Sydney and Billy were actually together. These two are exes, but there's just a few times here and there where it reminds us of Billy and Sydney. But
Yeah, because they break up like off camera because he cheated.
Yeah.
And he was just a dick because, you know, typical fuckboy. I mean, let's be
and
real.
Then, of course, like there's a scene where Trevor crawls into Jill's window, and
just like Billy.
Sydney walks in, and the movie makes it a point to make that, you know, reference to the first one. But I like the way that they did it. It's not too like
she wasn't like the cool mom. Like she wasn't trying to be like, oh well, it's okay, girls will be girls. She was just like, no, you remind me of myself. Like that key leaves it open for her to be like, what does that mean? Like if I keep going
like
down
look at what you've been through is
Yeah.
what she should have been thinking.
Yeah.
So maybe I shouldn't be doing things that remind me of you. Like
Yeah, definitely. So like you said, it kept things fresh with this new generation, but we also had the original three, you know, the original survivors, you know, Dewey, Gale, and Sydney showing up at different scenes. Of course, it starts with more or less with Sydney coming back into town. She wrote this book called Out of Darkness, and it you know, seems to be this redemption story. You later find out that she put a veto on any other stab movies coming out, and it's kind of like in real world. Like the only thing I can think of is like Game of Thrones, where the first like some odd seasons were based on the book and the source material, and then the rest of it was just based on the directors, and they're all creative, which is why that started the controversy. And in the movie it's the same deal. They're like, oh, the original trilogy is based off the Woodsboro murders, and then everything from like 4, 5, 6, and 7 is just this random, you know, craziness. And I thought that was cool because that's how it is in real life sometimes. So it just added that element of realism. And Sydney's signing this book, and of course Gale finds out she's back in town. They show her and Dewey, like you said when we were watching it, they have no real like forced romance. It's just you can tell that they're together. They're waking up in the same bed. Dewey gets up, puts on his, you know, his khakis or whatever, and goes, and he's the sheriff now. So that's like his character finally hit, you know, his flower blossomed or whatever, and he became the sheriff, which he pretty much was the sheriff. Like he did more work than the sheriff did. And then Gale, of course, is like retired from journalism. She's trying to write another book, and because of Sydney's success, has like a chip on her shoulder.
She's definitely a little jealous of Sydney for sure, and it shows, you know, the development and the progression of Sydney's character trying to reinvent herself. I think she says that in her own words, like reinventing herself to not be a victim anymore. And she wrote a book, and of course, I think Gale hadn't written anything in that 11-year time frame.
Yeah, no, because like all she had was, I was the writer of the Woodsboro murders.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all she says.
Exactly, and of course, it's making her want to write even more, and it's just.
She's like, I don't know what the fuck to write about. Yeah. But because you know, and she makes it downtown because, you know, Woodsboro is a really small town, and of course, Sydney's doing a book signing, and then everything goes to shit, and her rental is like the first crime scene because Ghostface or whoever's doing this is puts like a bunch of her books and a bunch of blood with a knife and a phone and like a bunch of just like
the mask is in there too.
Yeah, and of course she's like, that's my rental, and they're all like, oh my god, you know, swarm, make a surrounding, you know, or a perimeter, and they're like, well, now you're a material witness. And then we get this introduction of this Boy Scout trooper or sheriff who definitely has the hots for Dewey, but knows he's married and is kind of treading that line, and she's really, really annoying.
She is.
Yeah, and what is it, Deputy Judy?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she
I think it's so fucking funny because her whole thing where she makes Dewey like lemon squares and those little treats and everything, and Gale, when she comes out of the office, or no, before she goes in, she tells Dewey, she's like, will you tell Betty Crocker that I'm...
Yeah.
And I thought that was so fucking funny.
Yeah, because she's the you find out, she's the wife, and I forgot who asks her how long she's been married, and she's like 10 years, and they're like, oh my god, it's crazy because you never would have thought that you guys would make it. You guys are like a couple on paper but not in practice or some shit. And then in real life they were married for only like 2 more years after the movie came out. So it was very interesting to see that, because I thought that they had already gotten divorced, because 10 years I was like, oh, they're not together anymore, but never thought about the fact that the movie was made before I learned about that, and I had to like quick fact check myself, and I think they divorced in like 2012 or 2013 or something like that. But they were still, acting like Gale and Dewey, doing a good job of that. And I really thought that the core of the movie was the same but different, as we covered, but also the camera angles or the cameras that they used, I don't know which it was, but it felt like the original. Like, it's weird. We watched it on Blu-ray. We watched the original. This thing right here. Of course we streamed it, but I think all streaming services are Blu-ray cuts if you have, the actual whatever the subscription tier is or whatever it is. But we watched it on Paramount Plus, and it looked like the original. Like, it had that not grainy look, but it had that like retro feel. Very, very heavy saturated scenes and stuff like that. And I really thought that was a good touch, because I'm always looking for the Easter eggs, the nostalgia for the Scream franchise, that kind of thing. And I saw it in the camera angles and or cameras used. Let us know in the comments if you know which it was. And I was looking for obviously the Freddy Easter egg, which I think it's next, or it's the second thing. There's one more thing to cover before that, and that was when Sydney sees Ghostface for the first time.
Yeah, so
they kind of interchanged, though, to be honest.
Yeah, this one is definitely, when she sees him for the first time, it didn't have the same effect, like as good of an effect
to you.
Yeah, as it did, or even really to her, as it did in the the first through third ones. Like, we don't get that. Mainly the second and the third, because it's her seeing him again, and it's like a different feeling than seeing him the first time, because the first time is just straight fear. The second and third time she sees him is like, oh my god, not again. And in the fourth one, it may have just been that there was just a lot going on. She was trying to save the other girl that ended up getting killed in that house, because that's when she first sees him, is in the house that's next door to her aunt's. And to me, it didn't have that same effect. Like, her seeing him didn't seem that they put a lot of effort in making her, like, showing how she feels about it, and showing that she's like, oh my god, not this again. She's almost kind of like maybe desensitized to it or something. I'm not really sure, but it just like it didn't have that same effect. It didn't give me that like emotional like feeling that I got when she saw him again the second and third times.
I don't know. I think I definitely get what you're saying. I think I agree to an extent, but I also I guess my breakdown's a little different. Like, I think in the original, like you said, totally agree, like, what is going on? And then obviously the effects and the events of the first one happen, and then in the second one she's like, oh my god, what? And then in the third one is more of a not again, but still with that fear. And for me in the fourth one, it was more like a holy crap, like, she's not a mother, but she immediately thinks of Emma Roberts' character, Jill, and all the other kids. And she's like, I know what this shit is like. I don't want them to go through it. And it's more of like oh my God. Like,
yeah,
no,
I think that's what I was kind of trying to say. Like, maybe she was just more focused on protecting Jill and everything, that maybe that's why we didn't get that same, and maybe it's good that it wasn't the same. I liked that part of the second and third one, so I guess it just felt like something that was missing. But now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it was good they changed it up a little bit, because she was just, so focused on, I don't even care about me right now. Yeah. I'm focused on, Jill, my family, and everything like that. So that's probably why that element was missing.
Well, if you take for a second, if you take the Ghostface concept as like a drug or something to overcome, a trauma, if you will, you eventually go from fearing the trauma, theoretically, if you recover, which she's supposed to be the survivor, you go from fearing the trauma to understanding that it's bad. And then you go, okay, am I going to avoid it at all costs? Am I going to fight it when it shows up? Or am I going to go a step further and go help other people that may or may not be experiencing the same trauma or addiction or anything like that they have to overcome? So back to saying she wanted to spare Jill from that, not only because she was her cousin, which her cousin is the main, girl, the Sydney of this movie, basically. And it just made it for me, because I remember when we were watching and you were like, why the hell would you go? Because we're going into the dopest kill, because to me it was bar none the best kill of the franchise, probably, in my opinion. But she goes across the street and you were like, yo, why would you go across the street knowing that he's over there? You have no gun, you have nothing, you're going over there and you're going up the stairs with no backup, nobody knows what you're doing, and you're supposed to be the adult of the house. So all these kids, you tell them to stay there, nobody has any idea what the hell you're doing. And I was like, wait a minute, she's just not afraid of him anymore.
Yeah, she doesn't care. Like, she's almost willing to just risk her own life because she's not seeing, that's part of the plot of this movie, is she's not seeing herself as a victim anymore. So she's just worried about getting there and trying to stop it.
Right.
So, I mean, at first, I was like, why the fuck are you doing this? Because I can't remember exactly what the cops were doing. I can't remember if he had killed the cops, or I don't remember if it was Jill or the other
So,
guy,
if I remember correctly, I think
that the cops didn't even notice what was happening over there.
They heard a noise, and I guess so it's off camera.
Oh, yeah. They come in after everything already happened, and I guess I was thinking, why wouldn't she go and alert the cops? I think she thinks about it for a second, but then just bolts to the house or something like that.
Well, she just saw the killing, so she wants to get over there and either catch him before he gets away or confirm that she's not, whatever was going through her mind.
There's a chance that because of what she's experienced in the past, she thought that she could do more than the cops would have done anyways, which is a fair argument. But yeah, I guess when I first saw it, that's what I thought. I was like, dude, get the cops. They have weapons and shit. Like, and then go in. But she was just so focused on getting there and that she didn't want to waste any time. So that's a fair thing.
I thought it was a good scene. I think, when she sees him, it did bring me back to the original, because she was very undecided whether at first, like the look on her face was like, am I afraid? Am I angry? Or am I just lost and numb? And I thought it was really cool that she goes over there, or that she had that look, that you see her look at him through the window, and then it goes from him back to her, and then you see her like in the room that she's in before she bolts. And that leads me anyway, unless you have something else to talk about that scene. I definitely want to cover the dopest kill, because guys, it was insane. What's her name again?
Well, I think yours is different from mine.
Well, the girl the kill that we're talking about, where because Sydney meets Ghostface in the middle of a kill, and it's the girl that's across the street.
I don't remember her name, actually.
Yeah, I think we said it right before we hit record. But anyway, she's the friend of Emma Roberts' character and Hayden Panettiere's character. And which, fun fact on Hayden Panettiere real fast, I went to a Coheed and Cambria concert when I lived in New York City, and she was one of the celebrity guests that went to, I believe it was the Roseland Ballroom. And she was there, and I saw that the bassist of Coheed, Mike Todd, was smoking a cigarette, and I was like, holy crap, it's Mike Todd, holy shit. So it was like me and my brother and my cousin, and we're all like storming him, trying to get a picture or just a handshake. And he's like, yeah, man, what's going on? Super chill. And we're trying not to act cringe as fuck, And Hayden Panettiere was like standing right next to him. I don't know if she was dating him or trying to like talk to him or what, but none of us gave a crap. And I believe it was like during the height of Heroes, which was like her big break. She was in Remember the Titans as the little girl, but she was also in Heroes, and she was like one of the main characters. And I gave literally no shit for her. Like, I was like, oh yeah, whatever, what's up, homie? Oh my god, it's Mike you know what I mean? So every time I see her, I always think of that, which just sucks, because she's probably awesome, and if I get to meet her at Pensacon or something, that'd be dope. But anyway, I wanted to get that out of the way. Yeah, that friend, dude, and I hate to compare her to this, but this is like literally only thing I remember. It's this girl who is alone. She's like either house sitting or something by herself, because that's why Ghostface murks her. And she's in this like yellow bra for way too long. Like, straight up, the whole scene is her just walking around. I get it, she's in her house, but her window's wide open. She's on the phone. Like, it just seemed like it was for the guys in the theater, Like, I can see all the girlfriends going over like, yeah? Is that why you came? Is that why you came?
There always has to be somebody topless or whatever.
Yeah. And anyway, that kill, fucking awesome, bro. Like, it was, for me, I loved how bloody it was. Why? I'll get to that in just a second.
I did too.
It was insane, because the way they shot it with the score, the camera cuts, the look of horror in Sydney's face, hearing Emma Roberts and the horror in her voice.
Yeah, and like the way that they go from, you know, showing him killing her back to the other house, the girls' reactions and the way that they switch back and forth, it's like chaotic but in a good way, and I just like that. Like,
it just got you hooked if you weren't already, and
Yeah.
it got you like excited if you were waiting for the big drop in the roller coaster, so to speak, and it delivered.
Yeah, and the goriness or the bloodiness of it, like, it kind of brings you back to not the very first Kill of Scream one, because it was the boyfriend, but the girl, like
Casey.
hers, because you see, you know, Casey, you see her, you know, guts everywhere at the very end, except in this one you actually kind of see him do it.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought me back to that very first, you know, kill that we saw. Well, not the very first one,
Yeah.
but, you know,
The memorable one.
Yeah.
Because the boyfriend, who cares?
right.
But yeah, the reason why I thought, apart from the fact that it just, you know, it was the why we go see these nasty movies and these horror movies, because, you know, obviously it's not real. Those of you out there who literally get like, I'm sorry, get help, I guess, but like, we're fans of this shit. So I like that it was gross and it was bloody and stuff, and the fact that it hadn't been done before, like you said, until the original, or since the original, and that was only there for really the mom and dad, because arguably
Yes.
he was getting started. That was the very first kill. In this one,
To make a point.
yeah, he made a point to 2 girls and the leading lady, and he did it like didn't care. Like, and the cops were right outside, which he knew. And I mean, that you think about it, like, unless he subdued the cops, which we found out he didn't, they were just looking in the wrong section, calling attention, I think, to a noise that had nothing to do with him. And anyway, that brings me to why it was so awesome. It reminded me of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I told you guys I always draw parallels to A Nightmare on Elm Street because they were done by the same director. And to me, it was like the kill. I forget her name. I think it's not Annie. I can't remember. It may have been Annie. But the kill of the girl who gets put in the ceiling, and her boyfriend is like,
yeah, it does,
what the
actually.
fuck? Yeah, and it's so bloody, and you're like, what is
camera
going
angles
on?
and stuff are kind of similar,
Yeah.
and like
Aggressive cutting.
it's like the same level of chaoticness too.
Yeah, it definitely
Less confusion, but more chaoticness.
Yeah, it reminded me of that for sure. I definitely like made that a mental note. I had to cover it on this episode, so I thought that was really, 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 really well done. Those of you who thought it was gratuitous, dude, fuck you. Don't. Maybe this movie's not for you. But and I actually literally wrote that. A lot of people claimed it was like the least favorite part of the franchise. Dude, forget that shit. Anyway, moving on. Already
Talk
covered.
about mine.
About your dopest kill?
Yeah.
Oh, go for it. I mean, you had so much to say about this one. I
Just gonna
figured that was
leave
it.
me out like that. Damn.
Well, go ahead.
So obviously, like, I like that one a lot too. I have one that's probably like, I wouldn't say I like more than that one necessarily, but I think they're about equal for me. Rebecca, the publicist for Sydney, because I mean, it seems like in all of the movies so far, there's been like one kill that's like super calculated, and like, you know, the killer goes to certain extents that he normally doesn't go to for most of the kills. Most of the kills, he's just like, bitch, I want you dead, kill you. He was calculated about it. He like, he knew that she was going back to her car, and before she went to the car, he cut the wires out of her car and made sure that it wasn't gonna drive or start. And of course, she starts running. The way he kills her is, you know, true Ghostface fashion. Nothing special about that. But I think more what he does with her body after he kills her is what makes it so cool to me. Motherfucker throws her off the roof, and he's got good aim because I imagine he was meaning to do this way. It makes her land on top of the news van, or I can't remember if it was a police van or what.
It was a news van.
So she lands on it, freaks everybody out, and I don't know, it added an element to the movie that I liked a lot. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was just pretty dope.
See, it's funny you say that, because I actually had that as originally, for like 5 seconds, had that as my lamest kill, because like you said, it was nothing special. The girl was kind of annoying. Yeah. She's I forget her name. She was in yeah,
because I mean, Sydney had just told her to fuck off.
Yeah,
like,
she was in Glow. She was also in she was in The Disaster Artist. She played Dave Franco's girlfriend, because that's his wife in real life. I forget her name, but she's a good actress. And she played her publicist, and she was very, very annoying, very more cutthroat than Gale, but more annoying than probably the most annoying character in all of the Scream movies. So like he runs at her or whatever, kills her. That reminded me of a kill in Saw for some reason, or a capture in Saw, but because it was like in a parking garage. But then as soon as I saw, like you said, what he did with the body, I was like, holy shit balls. Like this guy literally just yeeted her off the thing, got everyone's attention, was like, yeah, I did it, do something. Then he disappears like a fart in the wind. But you know, I thought that was, again, it went from being the lamest kill to being not quite the best kill, obviously, for me, but it definitely was like, yeah, you're on the wrong side of the spectrum. This kill was pretty sick.
And it's so unexpected too.
I think that's why I liked it.
Yeah, a lot of the kills, even though they're good, can be pretty predictable, because I mean, it's, you know, it's the same weapon every time, you know, it can be predictable. And this one, the kill obviously is predictable. He fucking stabs her, but just what he does afterwards hasn't been seen before, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. This movie doesn't leave out a Randy character, and this time we get it in the form of two dudes. One of them is kind of the annoying one with the technology, you know, and all that, very, very, very practical. And the other one is more of the visionary, the extroverted, talks a lot kind of deal. And these guys are hosting this thing called Stabathon, which is basically watching, like what we do at home. I know I do, watch these movies back to back to back. And they've been doing it, I guess this was like the third year or something like that they had been doing it. And it's supposed to be this email only thing where it's super exclusive and all this other bullshit. And of course, Gail wants in because she's like, well, I'm going to do a documentary about the book I wrote, because she's a one-trick pony. I'm sorry, Gail. That's all you had was the Woodsboro Murders book and Written by Gail Weathers. She says like a million fucking times. But so she's going to try and get the scoop with these guys, and she gets, I don't remember how she gets the address, because they're like not giving it to her, but they agree to talk to her if they get to interview Sydney, because she's like the leading lady. Of course, that doesn't do anything good for her ego. So they go to this film class thing, and they're talking about the stab movies and all the psychiatric stuff about it. And Kirby, who's played by Hayden Panettiere, she shows Gail and Sydney that they're live streaming it. So they're like, oh, you're live streaming? And he's like, yeah, that's like the way it's done now. This killer is probably going to outdo the original, yada, 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 by filming it in real time. And, you know, basically that whole social media is, you know, what governs the world now kind of thing. And I like that they kept it to where Sydney and Gail were kind of out of the loop. Like if you start talking about Fortnite, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, you know, talk to me about Call of Duty or Destiny or something like that. Like if you talk about Fortnite and Overwatch and all that, Overwatch is kind of because that came out right before, at least if memory serves for me, I learned about Overwatch like right before the Fortnite craze and all this other stuff now. So like I'm out of the loop when it comes to all that. I'm more of like a, you know, early 2000s to 2015 kind of guy when it comes to video game, you know, stuff like that. So to me, it added that relativity or relation, I should say, to Sydney and Gail when they were like, you know, what's meta and what's, you know, these terms that these kids are throwing around all the time. And I never thought I'd be one of those that said kids today, which I don't. But this movie made me feel like
as you get older, there's always going to be stuff that you're out of the loop with. Like that's just, and I don't even mean older as in like 40s, 50s, old people. Like as you progress, there's going to be stuff that the younger generations come out with that you're like, what the fuck is going on with this?
Yeah,
like,
technology definitely.
You hear about it and you're like, what?
In 5 years, it's a different world. Like
so that's and that, you know, that goes along with them showing the progression of technology without throwing it in your face. It's just how it is now.
Yeah, and they this movie very well could have thrown it in my face, and I probably would have hated it if it did, because I don't like, you know, I personally don't like that we're in that age where if you don't film it, it never happened. I think that's kind of dumb because, you know, every story's been already told. So if you're going around recording everything you do and your whole life becomes documenting your life, then you're not the one that's going to live it. You know, whoever watches your videos will essentially live it or read your life, which I think is kind of weird. But anyway, that's just my opinion. And here I am making a podcast. So, you know, do with that what you want. But yeah, so I thought it was an unexpected, or they said that the unexpected, you know, expect the unexpected was the new cliche, which I was like, okay, I'll take that with a grain of salt. But you couldn't really put your finger on who was the killer. I tried. I mean, by the fourth movie, we're all trying to figure this shit out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that brings me to Emma Roberts, dude. I am not a fan. I mean, I liked her in Nerve because that movie just scratched a very specific part of my brain that itched. I think it was the colors. I think it was the concept. I think her chemistry with, oh my God, I forget his name. Dave Franco, obviously. Yeah. Cause I think that's why they got together, I think. Or no, not, I'm confusing it. Emma Roberts and Dave Franco were in Nerve. And that's the only exposure I got of her. I know you're a big fan of American Horror Story.
Yeah, American Horror Story is one of my favorite shows. I haven't really seen any of the newer ones. Like after the 1980s, I actually kind of want to watch that one again though, because I know this podcast is not about American Horror Story, but this is something for you and horror fanatics. The 1980s season of American Horror Story is literally them doing homages to a bunch of horror movies.
That's what I heard.
So I kind of want to watch it again now that I'm more into horror movies and know more about them, because I didn't like it when I first watched it because I was like, this just seems like bullshit, copying shit, like there's nothing special about it. But now I'm like, well, that's because it wasn't for me. I'm not into the horror movies, so. But anyways, I saw her in American Horror Story. She's in most of the seasons of American Horror Story, and so I can't really comment on, her character, especially in season 3, like, for those of you who know about American Horror Story, she's a bitch. Like, her personality is nothing to like. She does...
I think that's how she is in real life.
I have no idea. So I can't really talk bad about her person, like, as a person, like, off camera or anything, but I definitely can understand why you're not a fan of her, for sure. But the thing with American Horror Story is she just adds an element to it that
on screen
is needed, I guess, but...
No, I think on screen it's fine.
I guess that concludes the Emma Roberts thing.
But. Yeah, but she's obviously the new Sydney. She's her cousin. Yeah. You actually get to see Sydney's aunt, however you say it, but the other part of the country you're from.
I thought that was very interesting and cool that, that's her mom's sister.
And she drops the Maureen name, and you're like, oh, shit. Yeah, and she, she was my sister. And she's very...
Her death got me.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't like gonna cry or anything, but I was definitely like,
damn it.
Yeah. But then part of me was like, well, it's kind of bittersweet. Now she can be with her sister, whatever the fuck. 'Cause we don't really know how close they were. They don't really touch on that a whole lot.
I think if you ask me, and let us know in the comments, another quick plug to comment the fucking video, please. I think they were estranged, maybe, or estranged. I don't know if you add the ED to that. English is hard. But definitely, I think the more she got into the scandalous Maureen, the more scandalous Hollywood, she's like sleeping with everyone or whatever it was.
They probably drifted apart.
Yeah, because she definitely kept that traditional, Susie Homemaker or whatever the phrase is. Yeah. And like, she tried to raise her daughter right, but she was also kind of lax. And, she took Sydney in like immediately. She didn't put her up in a hotel and stuff like that, which you never got to see her. So I had no idea she lived in Woodsboro. So maybe she moved there. I don't know. I thought it sucked. It made me want to never have a mailbox slot in my house.
Yeah.
But that death was pretty gruesome.
Yeah, part of something I didn't really, not that I didn't like about the movie, but that I wish they'd done more with is her character. I wish we would have gotten to know more about her and her and Maureen's relationship, honestly.
Like, she should have said, like, if it would have been cool. I said gruesome. The kill wasn't gruesome. It was just fucked up.
Sad.
Yeah.
It's just like, what?
But if they would have shown her, like, even if it was to use like a photo album for like, what is it, exposition? Dude, I suck with these words tonight. I'm sorry. But you guys know what I'm trying to say, hopefully. Like, trying to show that backstory, maybe go, don't think about, because we saw Sydney was tortured by the memory of her mother. She was like, how do I miss my mother, who was apparently a whore for Hollywood? So like, if she would have set the record straight, either said, listen, your mom had questionable decisions, we're all human, or that's all bullshit, she slept with one guy and all of a sudden they branded her, with the A on her chest. So basically, what you're saying, I think 100%, I don't want that to go untouched, because that character could have been the link to the last 11 years.
Yeah.
But either way, she got her shit pushed in knife style. That sucked. But yeah, I definitely wanted to touch on the fact that it was, I guess the phrase is social satire. I'm going to put the definition of social satire down in here somewhere. I think that's the point I'm about to make. I'm batting 1,000 in this video, guys. I'm sorry, or this podcast episode. But yeah, I think that, like we covered, it's, if you didn't film it, it never happened. And the whole movie was filmed by these two, media nerds or whatever. And it even like cost one of them to die, like the guy that had the camera on his head, and you slowly find out why.
Oh
Yeah. So like it made it to where the movie definitely ramped up at the end. It hit like the sixth gear and it was coasting for a minute, and then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, here's the big reveal. Bodies are dropping everywhere. So-and-so's killing so-and-so's killing so-and-so, and it just keeps on going. And then when you think it's gonna stop, boom, it keeps fucking going. And Emma Roberts is like, nah, homie, lone survivor, it's just me. Forget her accomplice, bites the big one, which is the other media nerd, the guy that kind of looks like Macaulay Culkin. I legit thought it was fucking him, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, yo, hello. And she stabs him in the heart, which is like, holy shit, because that's what Sydney did.
He didn't expect it, because he thought they were in this together, and which that kind of brings you back to the second one, where Billy's mom killed
Mickey.
What's his fuck? Mickey. Yeah, Mickey.
Yeah. Timothy Oliphant's character.
And he didn't expect that. But
yeah, because like she stabs him in the heart, which is where Sydney stabbed Roman, right in the heart. And to me, that stood out. And he's like, "Oh, heart,
that's not what we planned."
Yeah, and then Sydney,
in the rehearsal.
Sydney, like true fashion, she's like, "Yeah, just like Billy, just like Stu," and she's just like egging him on, because Sydney doesn't give a fuck, bro. She's just like, "Yo, I'm gonna walk away from this."
I mean, by the fourth movie,
right?
What else do you expect?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, we thought she was gonna die. I know I did when I first saw this.
But I was like,
she's in the fifth one because of the posters and shit.
Yeah, but aside from that, I was like, I feel like they're not going to get rid of her, because she is such a crucial element to this, and Scream just would not be Scream without Sydney. It just wouldn't be anything.
I'm glad you say that.
Any movie that they would make after her death, if she died, wouldn't feel worth watching. It would just feel like a remake.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be right. And I was like, I don't think that they would make this mistake with this franchise, considering how self-aware they are.
Yes.
So I was like, I don't think they did a good job of making me feel like scared that she was gonna die for sure. But the logical part of my brain was like, But they strung it out for a good few minutes, like to where I was like, I don't know, but Yeah,
I think it was because of the music. You had that, sound. Those of you who watch Freddy vs. Jason, I believe it in memory serves. I've seen that movie so many times. When Freddy stabs Jason at one point, stabs him in a very specific spot that I won't ruin it for you. And there's a lot of blood, and you're thinking, oh my God, that's it. And you get that like score, that heavy score. And it just brought me back to that. When you see that dark red blood, movies have a way of making that seem like, oh no, dark red blood, that means it's like an organ or something. But I'm not an anatomy, major or professor or anything, so I don't fucking know if that means anything good or bad. But in movie talk, it immediately makes me go, holy shit, that's not a scratch, But yeah, so it definitely touches on the fact that social media and any kind of hobby can take over your life. And Jill, all she wanted was to be fucking famous, and hated Sydney because she was all the family ever talked about, and she was super butthurt because she's like, Sydney, and it's me now. And she wanted Sydney to be gone and to be the new center of attention. And instead of going to school, she's like, college, who goes to college? To be famous, you have to be basically a content creator. And I think if she would have said YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, if they probably would have let her. I don't know if that was the reason why it wasn't in the script, or they didn't want it to be too on the nose, but that's pretty much how I took it. If you're not a content creator, if you're not on the internet, you're not going to be famous. And it got her shit pushed in the end, because she definitely got that 15 seconds of fame when they pulled her out on the stretcher. She beat herself up and made it seem like she's like, well, I'm gonna kill Sydney.
For some reason, I really liked that scene where she was fucking herself up. I don't know why. It was different than the other movies. I don't think any of the other than, of course, which that was also an element that kind of brings you back to the first movie, because of Billy and Stu hurting each other. But of course, she's by herself, so I don't know, something about her, like the extents that she went to just for attention, was like, damn, this bitch is committed. And I was like, she and I expected it to end after the first thing she did to herself. Then I was like, she started doing the second shit, running into the glass, and then she did like four. Dude,
when she body slammed herself on the coffee table, I was like, all right, you need to fucking stop.
Yes, like after each time I was like, okay, that's gotta be it. okay, that's gotta be it. Okay, damn.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I liked it for some reason.
I'm sure those of you who are CSI majors can probably deduce the fact that like when she stabs Sydney, they can take time as to like when her wounds were inflicted and her boyfriend's been dead for an hour
I was
and all that
thinking
kind of
that
shit.
too, yeah.
But for the movie, whatever, I'm willing to overlook it even for Emma Roberts. But of course they get there, you hear the sirens. I'm thinking like The Room, it's gonna end with sirens.
Yeah.
But The Room, come on, The Room. But yeah, so it doesn't. And of course they put her on the stretcher, they take her outside, you get all the flashing paparazzi lights, you know, all over her crazy and stuff, and she's like, oh my god, I'm the survivor, everybody loves me. They're like, Jill, what happened? Oh my god, how do you feel being the new survivor, the new Sydney, basically, or whatever. I don't even know if they say that, but they may as well have.
Yeah.
And she's just like, she has this one scene where she like looks and it like fades out with this flash, and I'm like, if it ends like this, I swear to god.
Yeah,
And it
I was
doesn't.
thinking the same thing. I was like,
Then they go to the hospital and you're like, okay, more movie, you know?
yeah.
No time lapse, I don't think. And no, yeah, because it's the same night. Of course, Sydney, Gail, and Jill, Emma Roberts, they're in the hospital. Gail, we overlooked the fact that she gets stabbed. It scared me because I was like, oh shit, Gail. Because I think when the movie came out, somebody was teasing, oh, a major character is gonna die. And we're like, what? And then you see Gail get stabbed and you're like, fuck. I don't think I told you this because I didn't want to ruin anything.
Yeah.
And then of course Sydney gets stabbed and we're like, what the fuck, you know? And Gail's still in the hospital and you see Dewey's there visiting her, and he goes and he jumps to Jill's room and he's like, hey kiddo, how are you? And she's like, I'm fine. And he's like, Sydney might just make it. And she's like, what? Are you fucking? But I saw her die though.
Dude, the second that he walks out of the room, she's like, all right, takes all the shit off of her, walks to Sydney's room, and of course we get that end scene.
But you gotta love that corniness of like, she's like,
yeah.
and she's like,
But
ding, and gets up and she's like, oh my god, I wanna fucking die. And I'm like, dude. So she goes, weeble wobbles her way out. You get the cliche thing of her looking, and then the nurse is coming, so she like backs away, and the nurse is like, walking around, and she goes and just goes commando with the bedpan. Poor Dewey didn't even see it coming, bro. My man gets three-pieced.
every
Ka-ting,
time,
ka-ting.
every time something like that happens to him, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
poor
because
guy.
it's like beating up a basset hound.
And it's
like,
always over. It's always with some stupid shit too. It like that, like the bedpan or whatever it's called. Like come on, that's what got you. Like, but it's not his fault because it gets him. He's always caught off guard. Like that's always the thing. Like,
But Gail, I totally overglossed the fact that Gail was the one that was like, wait, how'd she know I was stabbed? And then Dewey was like, detective or Sheriff Dewey mode. And then
Yes.
Gail was like, run. And he like,
part of that is what makes me believe she's probably the best supporting character
Gail?
in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good call on that one.
Even though she's kind of in the background on the sidelines for most of the movie, I think that is what kind of makes it like even though she's not like very involved, like I think a big part of the plot is her wanting to be involved in the investigation and Dewey and everyone else telling her she can't be. So she takes shit into her own hands. She's the one that goes to that party, that like, you know, thing where they
Stabathon.
the Stabathon thing, and Ghostface shows up there, like the real Ghostface, and before that happens, she tells Dewey like, I'm going to this thing and I think there's something here, and he's like, whatever. And then of course,
Classic.
yeah, of course, you know, she ends up being fucking right, and I feel like it's just her contributions.
Well, you're right. She did solve it because she was like, dude, he's streaming it too. He had his own cameras.
Yeah, she saw that he had his own cameras and stuff, and of course, like you just mentioned, she's the one that's like, because Jill is like, you know, we're like matching with our wounds, and Dewey goes and tells Gail that, and Gail's like, how did she know that I was stabbed in the shoulder? Because
Right.
nobody except the doctors and Dewey knows that.
Yep. And the killer.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Dewey is like, I like that scene a lot where he realizes and he's like, oh my God. And he immediately goes.
Yeah. He runs. You see him pull his gun out, classic Dewey, and he's like,
yes.
yeah.
Which he doesn't limp anymore in this one.
He
I don't
doesn't
know
limp
if he got like.
in the third one either.
Does he?
No, he doesn't. Because remember you asked that, and then like after we watched the fourth one, for some fucking reason, Paramount decides to play them in reverse order, so the third one just auto plays. And you were like, we were talking about it because we were talking about like in anticipation for this, and you were like, is it me or does he not limp? He was like running perfectly down the hallway. I was like, yeah, he doesn't limp in this one either. And then we watched it. I think it was the scene where Gail's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm getting something from my trailer. And he takes his like gun and he like walks out and he like pivots and we're like, yo, where's your little like, and he doesn't have it, you know?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, like the medical side of that, maybe there's a way to get some kind of therapy. I guess your muscles can be
There might be
retrained or something. I don't know, but that's something I noticed.
Let us know in the comments if you know, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after that, of course, the shit hits the fan, or tries to. Emma Roberts tries to finish the job, tries to choke out Sydney. Then she like knees her in the stab wound. It's like, how are those stitches? I don't like Emma Roberts, as I've said a million times this episode, but she does a really good job of making you hate her. Like,
she's a good actor.
She is.
At least in the roles that she has been in.
Yeah.
I think she's a great actor for that. Maybe
Yeah.
because she's like that in real life. I don't know.
I mean, ask Evan Peters. I don't know. I didn't say
Right.
that. Oh my God. But yeah, so yeah, apparently they had some controversy. I looked it up like a week
Shout
ago.
out Evan.
But anyways, yeah, so she like grabs Sydney by the shoulder, confused us because we were like, is she the one that's been throwing around these people or was it the dude?
Yeah, because the very first kill of the movie, where the killer throws the bitch through the glass, because I mean glass is kind of hard to break. Like, it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is, especially from watching these movies.
Upscale houses have double pane glass. So go figure
Yeah,
that one.
and the girl is killed, and then they throw her through the glass, and I'm like, ain't no way that little bitch did it. But of course, you know, there's the dude too, but he's kind of small too.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like he would be very strong either. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know where they're getting. They must just have that psychotic strength or something. That they're just like throwing people around. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's insane. I mean, I thought it was awesome. The fact
Yeah.
that we couldn't tell, and the fact that they didn't show her like, she was literally like punching Sydney, kicking her, and like she was holding her own. I mean, she
Yeah.
took on 2 cops, shot Judy in the chest. Oh, that Judy scene, dude, holy fucking shit. When she was like,
She's
"Where the-"
kind of a bad actor. to
yeah,
be
she's like,
honest.
wear the vest, save your chest, and she does this like Bugs Bunny feint.
Nice one.
Hicks, you're alive?
Wear the vest. Save your chest.
We got 2 officers down.
Call it Bugs Bunny feint, but it,
No,
it
it's
was
like that.
ridiculous, dude. Oh my God, don't even get me started. Anyway, so
Probably the worst supporting character.
yeah, I mean, if she would have died, it wouldn't have done anything
Nah.
in that movie. But anyway, yeah. So obviously she's probably in the next one, you know, because she didn't die. But anyway, yeah, man, I think that pretty much covers it. Of course, they kill. They kill Emma Roberts twice. They shock her with like maximum was like 300 and something volts, and she didn't die from that.
Yeah, I liked that though. I liked the not the fact that she didn't die, but I liked the dramatic part of it where
Anything to say? And she's like, clear.
she was like, "Can I just have one last word?" She's like, "What, please?" or whatever the fuck. She's like, "Clear." And then I just absolutely love how she goes, "Clear," and then Sydney says, "Clear," and then does it, and I was like, love that.
Yeah.
Fucking clear, clear, clear.
It's like 3 different clears,
Yes,
you know?
I love that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Of course, she falls like a dead body, and then you're like, wait, what the fuck? She lived? And she gets up, gets capped, and that was it. But yeah, man, typical fashion, somebody gets capped at the very end, and then I think Sydney like lays next to her or something and says, and somebody asks her if she's okay, and she's like, yeah, I'm fine, or something like that, and looking at Emma Roberts' dead ass body. And then
She
of course,
says something to her dead body, and
Yeah.
her eyes are open.
uh,
I thought that was really like eerie but cool how they did that, because she's like looking into her eyes when she says it, even though she's dead.
yeah. And Dewey's like, of course, he's like, you know, officer down or something, got a new suspect, so it kind of like ties up the whole legal matter. And then the movie just ends, and we get a pretty nice ending song, very upbeat. I think it sounds like Lady Gaga. I could be totally wrong, I don't remember who it was, but it's like something tonight, and it just super freaking yeah. But the movie ends, and then of course I found out later that they were doing a 5th one. You were about to get to that for the first time. Scream 5 is one of my favorites. I'm not trying to go into detail because I don't want to spoil it, obviously, but I'm glad that after 5 we get right into 6. Yeah, so we had a lot of stuff come up, which is why this video I think is coming out a couple days late, but I'm gonna quickly edit it, put it together, upload it for you guys, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. we were kind of out of order. We realized that the videos we're getting, even though this one's a little over an hour, we're getting them shorter and shorter. So if you guys have any suggestions as to how you'd like these videos or this podcast formatted script wise to make it flow better or to make it more interesting, obviously let us know. We're still trying to figure this out and get our feet wet with this stuff, but very excited to go on with the franchise and to tackle other movies. We're going to do a special franchise after this. We're going to take a break from horror movies. I'm not going to tell you quite what that is, which leads me to the next thing, which is plugging Patreon. If you'd like to be considered, I forgot, a judge is one of the, I think it's the tier that has it, and you want to vote what content we cover on the channel, and you want to have that priority as to what we do first, consider joining Patreon and becoming a patron. That's one of the things you get to do, is vote on what the content's going to be. We have a bunch of movies that she hasn't seen, some movies that I haven't seen, and it's a great way to contribute to the channel monetarily to help us grow with the production value, like these mics and stuff like that. If you want to subscribe to the channel, if you haven't already, that's a great way also of contributing to the channel, and it doesn't cost you anything. Like this video if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And load the comments below with any questions, comments, concerns as to what we covered here, what you'd like us to cover in the future. We'd love to hear from you guys. So unless you got something to say, I think we're out this bitch.
We out.
All right, appreciate y'all watching. We'll catch you in the next video, man.